Ed Greenwood, the creator of the Forgotten Realms for Dungeons & Dragons, has come under some fire, some cancel culture crap, and there's a lot to go over on this one, so bear with me a little bit. Now, I do have a lot to show here. This is going to be probably a pretty lengthy video overall. Ed Greenwood, he pretty much one of the founders, one of the forefathers of Dungeons & Dragons, retweeted a tweet. So we're going to go over this. Do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, all the fun thing that YouTube like. What are your take on this? First off, it's over the comic strip that you see below me. Not the Iron Man, the Hulk, or the Spider-Man, but over this Snowflake and Safe Space comic that was put out a couple years ago. The idea was put out by Marvel a couple years ago, and it was an embarrassment. It was something that a lot of people rallied against. It became a laughing stock of a Marvel idea. This was probably one of the most telling things in the comic book industry to show that it was a very bad place. It was in a very bad place. It became a laughing stock. It was not something anybody took seriously. But now today, it's being used as a weapon against Ed Greenwood because he retweeted a comic book that he worked on with somebody named Ryan Palmer. They worked together on this comic book, and there is a lot of details behind this. Ed has been labeled as the senior editor on the comic book and all these other things, and because of that retweet, talking about Snowflake and Safe Space in this retweet, that no one seems to understand the details behind it, they're trying to cancel Ed Greenwood. Ed has bowed to the pressure. He is taking a knee, and he's saying that these safe spaces need to be open. So he obviously does not understand the reference of what he retweeted in the first place, and I think that's where things are going. And now it's being used. I don't know if Ed's being used unwillingly as a puppet, because this is something that we need to talk about. Article, it's actually more of a documentation because it gives a good representation of what's going on in this situation. John Del Arraz, he is also a comic book creator. He's a journalist, sort of a journalist. He writes for Fandom Pulse, and he's written a bunch of articles. Also got novels out there. He's a well-established person in the industry, for the comic book industry, and understanding what's going on here. Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms creator Ed Greenwood bows to cancel pig mob after getting attacked for supporting an indie comic. The cancel pig mob, this is a new meme that's come out where the people that want just to rally against comic books, rally against the creators, they cancel. They do everything possible to cancel anyone around there, and it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. It's literally you're shaking your fist at the cloud, and you've got your little minions, and you're just trying to really, really rile them up, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Ed Greenwood, the legendary writer and editor, countless Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms projects, came under fire from the woke cancel pig mob this weekend after retweeting the Indiegogo projects from Ryan Word Nerd Palmer, Haryvard Saints 8. Ed, he did a bunch of things with Ryan. He's done a bunch of live streams with them, and there's a very questionable crew behind the scenes on a lot of this stuff. And I personally don't know where to take this anymore because I've covered that crew. I've done a ton of research and done a ton of stuff behind what's known as New TSR, NUTSR, and this is something that I didn't think was coming back. They're currently in front of the courts against Wizards of the Coast, and they're currently in bankruptcy. There's a very long story that I'm not going to get into here. I'm going to probably link that playlist if you want to see more on that stuff. Ed Greenwood has always kind of been there. There's also another player, Tim Kask, that he's done a bunch of live streams with. Tim Kask is the creator of Dungeon Magazine, or the writer, or whatever it is, and both of them are kind of in the pockets with Wizards of the Coast, but they're not, because they're freelancers, and they've worked with them in the past. Forgotten Realms is a Wizards of the Coast product, but Ed Greenwood has the say. If something happens in the Forgotten Realms, and Ed says it happens in the Forgotten Realms, like Richard Garfield with Magic the Gathering, it's canon unless it's otherwise officially said it's not, right? So Ed Greenwood can sit there and take your Forgotten Realms adventure, write in a couple extra things into it, and that's what happens. That's where Ed Greenwood is. That's the level that we're talking about here. And now the mob is trying to cancel Ed Greenwood. Bent the knee to it, and it's absolutely ridiculous. This is the tweet in general. Ryan Tyler Palmer, an honorable word nerd, put this out as an advertisement for his comic book. Back Us. This is the book we wanted instead of Snowflake Safe Space, which is the comic book still that you see below me. Instead of Bisexual X-Men, which we've had lately, we had Mystique having relationship with a woman, which is fine, but then they're having a child, and that child was, the notion of it was conceived there when, and that child being Nightcrawler, and this is something I covered a while back. If you guys want to know more about that, I'll link that video as well. Ed Greenwood, try this. Old school is the very best way. Took me back to the days when I paid 10 cents for a comic at the local variety store. Only this time, the art is better. There's not really anything wrong with what he said here. But people are upset over the fact that Ryan called out the Snowflake Safe Space comic book from Marvel. And that comic book, it's a horrific idea. It was not anything that, I don't think it even went to print because of the amount of backlash the comic book got. It was a laughing stock of Marvel, absolutely. Everything we've seen lately from Marvel and DC, they can't put anything together that's original. They have to go back to something new or something old and try and rewrite it, like the Spider-Man controversy with Miles Morales and Spider-Man. You know, Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and then Miles Morales is Miles Morales. You go through everything to deal with that, and you see all these things with both sides of the coin where they're just yelling and screaming at each other. And this is where this has come down. Ed Greenwood deleted this tweet, Be Under Pressure, and it's a mistake. It's an absolute mistake, because I gotta say, everything that came down to it, he puts up this video on Twitter. He says, you know, everyone deserves a safe space and all this other stuff, and he didn't mean to offend the LGBTQ community. There is in no way, I believe, that this offended the actual LGBTQ community. I believe this got people in a knot, and they're using this as a means to attack Ed and to attack the comic book, because the comic book is tied to Ethan Van Sciver. Ethan Van Sciver is the creator of Cyberfrog. I have a copy right here. This was sent to me by a fan of the channel. I also have some Green Lantern comics by Ethan Van Sciver, and I've done videos about Ethan Van Sciver in the past. He was ousted from DC over views, political views, and over stuff like that, and he's just moved on with it. And the other thing that's going on with that right now, like, if you go look at the Ethan Van Sciver saga right now with Comicsgate, and there's two sides of the coin, once again, where everyone's fighting. There's more infighting, and it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm just sitting back, and I have a bowl of popcorn pretty much. Okay, yeah, I can't eat popcorn, but I'm still trying to eat popcorn because I'm just sitting back and watching this complete mess unfold over two different comic book creators that share similar worldviews, but it's one thing after another, and I honestly, it's just more entertainment for me at this point. I'm not paying that much attention to it overall. But this stuff with Ed Greenwood, because he's being tied to Ryan Palmer, which is a Comicsgate guy with Ethan Van Sciver. So the name Ethan Van Sciver is just something that the second you say it right now, everyone on one side of the coin loses their mind for some reason. So this is one of the ads that they've put together. This is like the poster they've put together. Storytelling as insightful as a classic book, a beloved old master, or a stirring symphony. Quoted from Ed Greenwood. And then right below that, his book looks good, Ethan Van Sciver. So it's a very heavy Comicsgate produced book. Now, everything we're seeing right now, I don't know what it's going to do. It's the fallout of this is absolutely ridiculous. Everything that Ed has put out there, I don't think he understands, and it really feels like it's been written from a PR standpoint to put out there. And like we saw with new TSR, and Ernie Gygax's name was being tied to everything to do with the new version of TSR and being used in the lawsuit or the counter filings with Wizards of the Coast. Ed has now found himself at a similar junction at this point. He's found himself in the middle of all of this. Ed worked on this book. A lot of people need to understand that. Ed worked on this book. He's tied to it through and through. There's no denying it. If you go over to Ryan Palmer's YouTube channel, you can find multiple videos where Ed Greenwood is in them, even to the point that the ad read that they did for Saints, Haryvard Saints, Ed does the voice of Haryvard.
Please state your name for the record.
I'm Haryvard Saint, Head of Operations, Badge 3164.
Like that, he is totally tied to this, and it's not a bad thing. That's the thing. They're putting out a comic book that a lot of people want. A lot of people want this type of comic book. They want to break away from everything being shoved in our faces over sex, over all these things. Ed didn't do himself any favors by putting up this 5-point tweet that's now is what they're using as a jumping point to attack all these things. So this is the point tweet that's been put up by Ed. It's come to my attention that I retweeted something earlier today that was harmful and offensive. We all share one planet. There is no place for homophobia or anti-inclusivity or even name calling. And that's not what the tweet was. I should have read the tweet before reposting, and that's on me. For that and the hurt the tweet has caused, I'm deeply sorry. This really reads like someone at PR wrote it for him. I reviewed the script of the first issue of the comic book back when COVID hit, then wrote it forward for it for free. I thought it was a good story at the time, and I was pleased to see it was finally coming out, so I quickly retweeted it without paying proper attention. You did nothing wrong, Ed. However, I am not okay with the LGBTQ blah 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 people being attacked. They're not, or for that matter, anyone who feels left out or othered. Storytelling often explores violence and important moral issues, but safe spaces are important. That means you have absolutely no idea what this is. Even if it was written as a PR thing, you have no idea what this comic book was and how much of a joke it was to come out of Marvel. I have always considered myself supportive of everyone being treated with the same respect and feel represented. I am pro-inclusivity. I don't want to be associated with anyone who can't get along with people who are different. And that's a really telling thing. Back a long time ago, Ed Greenwood had put up this post on April 5th, 2016 in reference to a character in Baldur's Gate 2 that came out that it was revealed they were trans or something like that. Now, this is back in 2016 at the height of Gamergate. This is what I mean. Everything that you try and unfold on this, every time I've gone to try and make this video, every step forward that I've tried to do on this video, one more thing just falls into place that everyone just doesn't like. I am saddened by what I hear of the current kerfuffle raging about Siege of Dragonspear and the trans character Amber Scott designed and included in it. Remember, this is the creator of the Forgotten Realms. He has the final say of the canon. Folks, the realms have always had characters, morals, and deities who cross-dress. This is correct. Change gender. This is correct. And not just to sneak past guards in adventures by way of shapeshifting, magic, or illusions. Actively bisexual and openly gay. It's always been there. And this is something that I've said for Dungeons & Dragons for a very long time. The inclusivity of the game has always been there, and it has been there from day one. You want to sit down at the table, play at the table. Work out your differences outside the table, but play together. That's been the whole thing. How underscored this was by TSR and later Wizards varied over time and was always soft pedaled because D&D wasn't a sex game. And we generally don't rub the reader nose in sex unless there's a good in-story reason for it. And this is one of the reasons why I've rallied against Baldur's Gate 3 with the romance. This right here. But even deities have changed gender, sometimes for good, and the servants of deities. Elminster. In Elminster's The Making of a Mage have sometimes been forced by a deity to spend time as the other to learn what life is like. So it has always been there. It's an integral part of the realms. With that said, I've never met a gamer yet who doesn't tinker with every adventure to make it their own, at their own gaming table. So if trans, LGBT, or sexual matters at all don't suit your taste and needs in your gaming session, leave it out or change it. It's your game. Play it the way you want. Keep it fun. That's what everyone said about it. But D&D, as half orcs and half dragons and half elves, has magic items that specifically change gender. The belt of change gender. It's a cursed item in the game, but some people use it as a boon in the game. Right there in the rules. Surely, if you can handle the basic notion of cross-species sex, having a full variety of gender roles should be something that doesn't blow your mind. If it's not for you, that's fine. I hate wearing certain shades of yellow, but I don't scream and yell at someone I see wearing those shades of yellow and call them names and threaten things. My right to dislike yellow applies to me. It doesn't extend to others because somehow, through an incredible oversight on the part of the universe that still hasn't been rectified, no one made me a god. I'm still crushed. This was back in 2016 at the height of the Gamergate BS that went through. At the same time, this is kind of the notion, this is what started the pivotal point of what we see in the culture where the shift has really happened. And now that what's happening in that shift is one side has taken hold of this one side of the coin where everything is about representation and labeling and everything like that. And those labels are now driving people insane. Those labels that sit there and say, if this isn't in my game, if this isn't the forefront of my game, if this isn't the number one detail of my game, we can't play together because you're a bigot, a misogynist, or whatever you might be. Ed Greenwood, unfortunately, is being used in the middle. He is going to be in the middle on all of this, and you have to wonder if this is a situation like what we saw with Stan Lee. You have to wonder if something else is going on. I don't know. I believe that's more happening with Ernie right now because I've heard Ernie Gygax he's had his health go up and down, so he is dealing with a lot of issues. And once again, it just seems that the name alone is just creating all this controversy, right? These are the forefathers of Dungeons and Dragons. These are the guys that created this system that is now revolutionized where we think gaming, where fantasy is, where we think things are. But then you have games that come out like Baldur's Gate 3 where they push sex, where they push the sex, and it never was part of the game. It was never part of that. And this is why I sit there and I say, Baldur's Gate 3 is not a good game because they're pushing the sex. Ed Greenwood, I think you went and you fell on your sword, but it's double-edged and you're going to unfortunately be riding this one out for a while. I don't know where you're going to be. You're going to end up getting probably canceled by Wizards of the Coast. I've seen this time and again. They're going to walk away from you straight up. Hopefully you can continue to make adventures on your own. He has his own publishing company and websites and all this other stuff. I believe Ed Greenwood is a pretty stand-up guy. He's got an imagination. He's got everything out there, but unfortunately, because he's fallen on his sword, he's going to take a lot of heat, and the cancel culture mob is waiting at his door, and it's continuing today. This has been a very long video. I hope you guys stuck with it to the end here, because This is probably one of the most important messages I've seen from Ed Greenwood. Things have always been there. The inclusivity for these games has always been there and always will be there, no matter what it is. But it was never about ramming it in front of our face and making our noses be rubbed in it so badly that we see in today's gaming world. We see it in all fandoms right now, and this is why there's such a rallying cry against it, because it was always there, but it never had to be like this, and now it is. Have yourselves a great day. I've been your proud Canadian Phoenix Cinder Shadow. I will talk to you guys very soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe.